Aloha, beautiful, golden, galactic, celestial pod on the planet, the awakening planet of our most beautiful dreams. We bliss here to share a little love stream about our mitochondrial DNA. So, massive downloads have been coming in the last few miracle weeks, and they have been downloads to help the feminine on the planet understand the power within her womb space, which is 0 point, when engaging in two-strand DNA. Now, masculine also have 0 point in their body. It's just that in the current structure of the human form, in what we like to call the fictional fiction out there, the feminine has the 0 point in her womb. So a lot of the transmissions that have been coming through have been transmissions to help ignite the feminine awareness that her womb is the container of creation. And so if a feminine being is living on a planet and allowing access to her 0 point through the womb, that is the creative power. That is 0 point. That is where creation occurs from. And so these transmissions that have been coming through have been to assist the feminine to recognize the power that is in her womb space. And if the feminine wants to live in a transformed world, it is learning to steward the power of that womb and choosing how the energy of the womb is accessed, and then what the creational capacities are directed towards. So one of the things that We Bliss has been sharing is that the fictional fiction that we're coming out of was designed using the power of the feminine womb without the feminine input of the creation, which is why we're coming from a patriarchal world. And that world has been void of the feminine voice. So this huge transmission and transition that is coming through is the shift out of those phantom realities, out of two-strand DNA, which we're going to talk about, and coming into the absolute truth, the awareness that we are sovereign, that we are pure source consciousness, and that we are free to create from free energy. So if you think this love stream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. There's a little share right there, so you can share live right now. We can have others join in. So the transmissions that have been coming through have been about accessing the mitochondrial DNA. And what the guidance keeps saying is you won't hear science speaking a lot about mitochondrial DNA. You'll hear them speaking about two-strand DNA. And of course, this wonderful book written by our dear friend Richard Rudd, The Gene Keys, was a decode of the two-strand DNA. And what we say Bliss received in May of 2016, when Mercury occulted the sun, Mercury went across the face of the sun, we say that we received the next level of synthesis to bring human design and to bring the gene keys and all of these different systems together so that we could take the consciousness through and beyond all of this. Okay. So what the guidance keeps explaining about the mitochondrial DNA and the two-strand DNA. So we'll share this in a way that you can get a visual for yourself and begin to access the mitochondrial DNA. I did a love stream the other day speaking about the mitochondrial DNA. It was called Woven into the Fabric or something like that. And if you want to check that love stream down, I put the link in the description box here as well. I put the link for several love streams that kind of all build on each other if you feel inspired to tune into those as well. So this is all about sovereign consciousness waking up inside of these forms that have two-strand DNA woven into them. And what I have been shown is that inside of the cell in the way that science has been taught to humanity. Of course, it's been passed on over generations through universities and all these teachings, and if anyone were to ever go against those teachings, that would be bad. You wouldn't be able to remain a professor. But what if you were someone like Bruce Lipton, who was a cellular biologist and a professor who was teaching things at university, and you started to look under an electron microscope to see that what you had been teaching was not accurate to what you were observing under the electron microscope itself. So what happened? That's exactly what happened for Bruce Lipton, and he realized what he was seeing and witnessing himself was contrary to what he was teaching, and he started to realize that he had to share what he was learning and speak out. So, what he learned was that the environment that the cell is in is what accesses the DNA itself, what turns DNA on, what turns DNA off, instead of the concept that, if your mother had breast cancer, you were going to get it. That was the big shift that he saw himself. Okay, so the piece that the guidance is coming through with right now, and as we say, if this love stream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting with that little share button right now. And we are really inviting the cosmic family to tune into these pieces as well, because the guidance is showing this is how to unlock the super abundance in our physicality. So as we shared on the love stream the other day, what Yogananda has shown to we is that the actual fabric of our physicality has been bound by two-strand DNA that was woven into the fabric of these forms themselves. And what I've been sharing with the pod is that just like stitches are stitched into the skin, there's those stitches that dissolve. And so with the light that has been coming into We's form, it is coming in to dissolve those stitches of two-strand DNA itself. And the guidance has been sharing, and we shared on other love streams, that part of the reason the ascending family maybe has been capping out at certain levels of their own process is because how the two-strand DNA and the fictional fiction matrix has been woven into the physicality itself. And without the capacity to see that, without the capacity to know that, and without the capacity to bring in enough light to dissolve that out of the tapestry of our physical form itself, it has left the ascending family kind of capping out. So we Bliss have been asking and inviting for the guidance to show us what will take us out in totality into ninth wave unity and beyond all those other levels of humanity, which are part of the Metatronic blueprint itself. This transmission is to guide and take the consciousness out of the Metatronic blueprint forever, out of the metaverse forever. And one of the things we've been sharing is how on these princess lines that we are stewarding, a transmission came through in October to take the metaverse out, to dissolve it out of our physicality so that the form can be liberated out, just like the 60th gene says. When the 60th city ignites in multiple beings, it will be the end of the world as we know it. And Gaia and the cells that make up her consciousness will move forth into a new reality in the blink of an eye. The two laws that must be transcended are the laws of gravity and the law of gravity and the law of time. So that is what has been coming in through these transmissions, through We's awareness, through the teachings that have been coming through with We's, those who have been stewarding We's Bliss's consciousness to understand how to navigate through this physical web that has been woven into our form. And so we've been witnessing in the presence of the light that is coming into his form that it's literally dissolving the fabric of the matrix of time and gravity itself out of the physical form. And by sharing these transmissions, by articulating them in such a way, and like we say, you might want to go back to the previous love stream that we included the link for here. We did more articulation about this the other Miracle Day. So in the space between the words, we are sharing the essence of what is coming through for epiphanies to occur in the consciousness, to go, oh my gosh, I can see this too. And so what we shared before was how Yogananda showed me how the tapestry of the matrix itself was bound into the physical fabric of the body. So what has been coming through as well is the guidance keeps taking we bliss back to the cell. And it's showing me what how science has drawn the cell, that and taught that DNA and RNA is where all the information is held. The thing that science didn't mention is that DNA and RNA that have been overlaying the form, the DNA and RNA that have been operating in our physical forms, is the DNA and RNA of time and gravity that keeps the physicality bound to the earth, bound to the fictional fiction, bound to the matrix itself. So in order for one to move into that fully sovereign state in our physicality as well, it is to have the awareness to override with our pure source consciousness through our choice, through our decree, to override that two-strand DNA of gravity and time itself. Never underestimate the power of your voice, the power of your word, the power of your choice, the potency of your pure source consciousness to guide with precision your pure potential. And that's part of the transmission that has been coming in. Once again, if this love stream is inspiring, please share it with that little share button wherever it is. That's called gifting. So we're sharing with each of we articulation for contemplation to go inside of ourselves to see if some of this resonates. And if it does, it's the passing forth of what we call Flight Lessons 101 for takeoff of the consciousness, because the consciousness was never meant to be bound by time and gravity or physicality. Suffering in the physical form is not allowed. That is not part of creation's plan. And so this is how we unlock ourselves, how we unlock our superabundance. Our true superabundance is our capacity to access our pure source consciousness itself in the physical form for creation, for beautiful creation, the original divine creation of what is called wholeness in the English language. Complete, not fractalized, not fragmented. And so the guidance has been showing me how to bypass the two-strand DNA itself and go directly into the mitochondrial DNA. And the guidance keeps showing that the mitochondrial DNA is where we access our pure source consciousness, where we access our original divine form, or our original divine covenant of physicality with source. So we are guided to invite the ascending family on the planet to receive these codes inside of us now. There's no forcing, there's no cajoling, we're just sharing articulation for contemplation inside of the cells. Science tells us that mitochondria is where the energy of the cell comes from, the ATP. And the guidance is showing that what is really inside the mitochondria is our original divine the guidance is saying our original divine ATP, which would be a better word than DNA. That's what we just heard the guidance say. So to access our original energy, pure source energy, in such a way that the supernatural capacities unlock inside of us, in such a way that we become, we experience our pure potential for creation. And we and the pod have just created a GoFundMe down below if you want to support these transmissions, and also a Patreon. And the Patreon, because we bliss, we're really seeking the articulation of what we are being shown is happening now. So as an oracle, we're always reading what is in the field and seeking the articulation to share it back for others to awaken up their internal capacities as well. And what we keep seeing is, like, you know, the thinning of the veil is so thin. And really what the guidance is showing is the pure potential. And that's why we call the Patreon Pure Potential. We're playing with the name. We have a few names around potential and precision. And that is what is coming in. So one just has the opportunity to just take these codes, go within, ask, is my 2-strand DNA overriding my mitochondrial ATP, my mitochondrial connection to source consciousness? Is my 2-strand DNA connecting me to time and gravity? Do I choose to remain bound to time and gravity itself? Would I like to unlock my true superabundance, which is the capacity of my consciousness itself to move in and out of form at will, to play with form at will from the original pure source consciousness that I am? These are questions to ask ourselves. So the guidance is just sharing articulation that has the capacity to access supernatural capacities in the self. I did my first handstand yesterday, and I did it unaided, and I've always wanted to do a handstand, and I wasn't even close to doing handstand the day before. So I was pretty impressed with how this is unlocking my own personal supernatural capacities in my physical form. Even though time isn't real and doesn't exist, on the planetary level, time is programmed into the cells of the physical bodies. And the last part of transcending physicality in the awakening process is to transcend time itself. And that's an actual alchemical process that happens inside the form, such that the consciousness is no longer bound to linear time, literally electromagnetically bound to linear time. So as the consciousness transforms, the internal working, which is what the internal alchemy is all about, the alchemist, the truth of who we are, the unlocking of these codes within these incredible temples, and dissolving the fabric overlay of the matrix that was woven in through black magic, spell, incantation, the design of the system. So as we all know, the patriarch is done, and it is in its final throes of dissolution. And there is someone that there will be a memorial service for on the planet in linear time this week. And we would invite all of the ascending family to open up to your internal mitochondria and your internal ATP. Because this final piece that is playing out in physicality represents to we everything that we've seen. We shared in one of the transmissions that recently, at the time of the Virgo full moon, we bliss in the middle of the night, we're like fully risen, and we's consciousness, we's physical consciousness. We do a lot of like physical bilocating and trilocating now. My physicalized consciousness was underneath the city of London itself. And I was emanating an energy to the barristers and solicitors themselves. And I could see that the energy coming through we was the final message that all of those systems have gone down. They have no power over. In the fictional fiction, those systems had power over. In this creation, in the lifting of the veil, the unlocking of our pure source consciousness, nothing, including nothing, has power over, because we've returned to pure source consciousness itself. So as one is learning to navigate coming out of 3D and physicality and coming into pure source consciousness in our physical reality, 100% guaranteed, the super abundance is unlocking for those who have done the physical clearings and alchemy in our physical bodies. And that super abundance that comes is access to pure source, creative, pure potential itself. So we invite the ascending family on the planet to contemplate the codes that we are sharing out, and to really open this entire miraculous week for miracles to abound. Miracles. That feels complete. We love we thank we. And oh yeah, with your crystalline creations, your what are called altars, we don't like that word, the grid lines that you are working with, the sentient containers that you've been nurturing in the energy field with your gardens, your homes, with nature, really connecting into all that we have been creating now and in the physical body, and really allowing these codices to open in totality through the mitochondria itself. We love we so much. We love we thank we dance with we sing with we celebrate with we, the miracle jubilee. If this love stream is inspiring, please share it. That's called gifting. If you want to check out the other love streams, there's many links there. Oh, Jewel Yee made a really wonderful post, which I've included in the description box as well. And she's been sharing about the period from, even though time isn't real, the spring equinox until April the 12th. And that is this alignment with Jupiter, and Pisces in Neptune. Her post is confirmation of what we're sharing. So check it out. And the completion of that age of Pisces, the patriarch, inside of the cells, inside of the body. So now when we consciously know how to just visualize and go into the body and witness that tapestry of time and gravity, see it as a different color, see it as mesh woven in, allow yourself to see it dissolving from the purity of the original fibers of your structure from within. And as she says in her post, it's like the final clearing of the phantom outpicturings of the self. So a lot of things in your life might be changing, a lot of reflections might be changing. Stay on the path, my friends. Do not get distracted right now back into phantom fictional creations, because we are truly unlocking our pure potential from within ourselves. All right. Love we think we dance with we sing with we celebrate with we. And also we put the links for the GoFundMe or the PayPal as well, if you want to contribute there, because it's all part of the game. We love we so much. Please share this out if you're inspired.